They avoided the crew trains running the length of the vessel, and instead walked the miles to the command deck in silence. Once, Harcourt opened his mouth to say something, but Perturabo silenced him with a threatening glare. The officers of the command deck behaved like men condemned. Quiet orders issued from mouths tight with stress. Pale faces glowed with the sickly reflected light of gel screens. Eyes stole furtively to the Lord of Iron as he paced onto the deck, but none dared look at him for long. His fury boiled off him. His hunched body creaked with violence that the slightest mistake could unleash. Perturabo went to stand by the empty shipmaster's throne. Its mechanisms had been opened and cleaned, awaiting its next occupant. No one knew yet who would be granted that dubious honor.
"Report,"
said the Primarch. The officer of the watch nodded. The mortals on the deck moved cringingly under the guns of their Space Marine masters, and he was no different. He managed to look the Primarch in the eye for half a second, delivering the rest of his news to a patch of floor at Perturabo's feet. "It is the Androcles, my lord. They made contact a minute ago."
"Where is the rest of the resupply fleet?"
The officer buckled under Perturabo's seething rage. "My lord,
"Answer me!"
bellowed Perturabo. He lowered his head to the officer's level, his spittle flecking the man's face. He was a monstrous bull ready to charge.
"You have opened communications, I assume?"
"Yes, my lord," said the officer of the watch. Perturabo looked round at his cowering servants.
"Then open me a hololift channel to her commander immediately. What has happened to you? Have you all taken leave of your senses? Must I do everything myself?"
The officer shook. He had to swallow 3 times before he could continue speaking. "My lord, Captain Thursuga is on his way here by fast lighter, running ahead of the Androcles. He has news that he wishes to deliver in person."
"From the look of you,"
said Perturabo to the deck.
"you are all aware of the information that the captain would impart. Report it to me."
"My lord, I stuttered the captain. Perturabo seized the officer of the watch by both shoulders and hauled him off his feet.
"Tell me!"
A dark stain spread across the officer's groin. 3 drops of liquid splashed onto the floor. It is Olympia," he said in a small, terrified voice. "It has rebelled against the light of the Emperor." The expression on Perturabo's face would have been comical under any other circumstances. The color drained from his flesh, his eyes widened to childlike proportions, his features went slack in disbelief. No one had ever seen the Lord of Iron so. All his certainties were washed away like footings of sand in a flood, and his arrogance collapsed like a castle built on top. I'm sorry, my lord," said the officer. Red flushed Perturabo's cheeks. His forehead blotched. His mouth twisted into a bestial snarl. With a roar, he gripped the officer of the watch. The man screamed as his shoulders shattered under the pressure. Keeping one hand on the man's shoulder, Perturabo grabbed his hip and lifted the hapless officer up high, raised his own leg, and brought the man's back down hard on his armored knee, breaking it like a stick. He threw the dead man down and looked around wildly, as if he would see the solution to his predicament hiding in the corner. He fell into a crouch, the posture of a half-man about to strike. The bearing of a noble Primarch left him, and the light of insanity danced behind his eyes. The Iron Warrior's hands tightened involuntarily on their guns. Golg took cautious steps back. Harcourt looked over his shoulder for an avenue of escape. Foryx stood paralyzed. Every man and woman on the command deck stopped dead, tasks forgotten. Only the servitors worked on, mindlessly burbling status reports or action queries. Tension built unbearably, worse than an approaching storm. They were like meat beasts trapped in the cage of a raging amble. Not one among them expected to leave alive. Their looks of fear and the reactions of his sons cleared Perturabo's mind. For a moment he considered flying into them and killing them all. The rational part of him, that he had spent so many years cultivating, teetered on the brink of destruction, but then recovered. He could not drown in the shame this news brought in blood. His rage passed. a thunderhead rolling away without delivering the promised rain. He sagged. The dead officer's terrified face stared up from the deck. Perturabo stared back, lost for words. An awful, sucking ache pulsed in his chest, as if his heart had been removed and replaced with nothingness. Disbelief and shame threatened to destroy him. He screwed his eyes shut.
Inform me when Captain Thisuga lands,
He said quietly.
I will receive him in my command chamber alone.
He turned to go, head bowed. He stopped and looked back at his communications officers.
Tell him he has nothing to fear.